U.S. voters continue to anxiously wait the results of Monday's Iowa Democratic Party caucus. The party blamed the delay on a coding issue in the new app used to tabulate the results. There were unexplained inconsistencies which led to heated conference calls and firm denials of hacking. In the absence of clear results, Democratic presidential hopefuls gave what appeared to be victory speeches to supporters, turning their attention towards the new nominating contest in New Hampshire.
For some reason in Iowa, they're having a little bit of trouble counting votes. But I am confident that here in New Hampshire, I know that you'll be able to count your votes on election night. And when you count those votes, I look forward to winning here in New Hampshire. So tomorrow, the votes may not be there to impeach Trump, but I am absolutely confident that in November, the votes will be there to defeat Donald Trump.
I think we need a strong Democratic candidate that can beat Trump, since Trump's likely to be the Republican candidate. And we saw what happened last time.
The Cuban government provided a timely response to Trump's State of the Union address as the U.S. president made mention of the island alongside comments about Venezuela and Nicaragua. Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez said that if President Trump wants to support the Cuban people, he would have to lift the genocidal blockade, resume the forbidden flights, and grant visas to Cubans. He should re-establish U.S. citizens' freedom to travel to Cuba. In Mexico, a Central American migrant died and at least 81 others, including women and children, were injured after a truck they were traveling on overturned in the state of Veracruz. The victims, mostly coming from Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, were taken to 3 different state hospitals where they are receiving medical care. Those who suffered minor injuries were housed at a temporary facility in a children's shelter in San Andrés, Tuxtla.
We have more than 80 people injured who were taken to 3 hospitals and they are being stabilized. We have 1 dead. The victims are mostly Guatemalans, but there are also Hondurans and people from El Salvador.
In El Salvador, local communities along the country's main river, El Lempa, blame the sugarcane industry for the country's worsening water crisis. They demand that the government introduces stricter regulations for industrial water use.
Under its 2018-2020 plan, the sugarcane industry in El Salvador seeks to produce about 1.7 million tons of sugar. While sugarcane is one of the most important industries in Central America, the crop requires an excessive amount of irrigation. In El Salvador, one of the country's biggest rivers, El Lempa, serves as an important water source for the industry. But such a high demand for water, combined with the several hydroelectric dams along the river and the effects of climate change, can heavily affect local communities.
We are in the month of February, and we can already see that it's drying up. And if we look over the riverside, we can see a number of water pumps that are siphoning away the water.
Communities in the center and the south of the country have long fought both the sugarcane industry and the government to defend their lands and the water. They heavily criticize the government for allowing various industries to use the water for their liking, and they call for stricter regulations.
Currently, private companies are free to use water in our country. That's why we are calling on the government authorities, such as the Environment Ministry, the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock, as well as the National Assembly, to approve a water protection law, which has been proposed by various organizations.
Another issue is the burning of the sugarcane fields, a practice used for facilitating the harvest. But communities say it has serious consequences on the environment. We are seeing, once again, the unregulated burning of fields. We have been condemning this practice for more than 10 years in Bajo Lempa, and now we want to send a clear message to the national and international community, to all the environmental committees. We urge you all to ask the government of El Salvador to put an end to the burning of sugar fields and their aerial fumigation. And such practices of the sugarcane industry don't only damage the environment, but also pose a risk to the health of local communities.
The contamination of the water and the air pollution can cause serious illnesses like diarrhea, respiratory diseases, and not only in my home, but also across nearby communities that are located near sugarcane fields.
The top destinations for Salvadorian sugar are China, the United States, and Canada. The income from exports in 2018 was around $722 million, a profit the local communities along the River Lempa do not see.
Trinidad and Tobago is positioning itself as an aid to other Caribbean countries who've recently had fines in the petroleum industry. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley made the announcement at the country's 2020 Energy Conference, which began on Monday.
Trinidad and Tobago, with its long history in the industry, is well poised to assist the new entrants Guyana, Grenada, Barbados, Jamaica, and the Bahamas in the development of their petroleum sectors. To date, we have entered into memoranda of cooperation with Guyana, Grenada, and Barbados for provision of technical assistance. Preliminary discussions are in their early stages on the development of unitization agreements with Grenada and Barbados for the exploration of hydrocarbon reservoirs that extend beyond our respective maritime borders.
Also speaking at the event was Barbados Prime Minister Mia Mottley, who lamented the failure of the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, which established the CARICOM single market and economy to address energy issues, including high production costs.
Electricity prices and energy prices in the Caribbean have been prohibitive, particularly for those of us who are trying to craft out a way for development for our people. And when you look at the fact that you are meandering between 20 US cents and 37 US cents to be able to produce electricity, no wonder the IMF has declared that this region is one of the regions that has had their competitiveness completely eroded by the cost of energy.
The great poet and Barbadian thinker Kamau Brathwaite passed away at the age of 89 on Tuesday. The literary icon was known as one of the godfathers of modern Caribbean literature and wrote extensively, developing the concept of Creole identity, a predominantly Afrocentric theory drawing on the majority African heritage of Caribbean people. Prime Minister Mia Mottley described Brathwaite as easily one of the titans of post-colonial literature and the arts. We have more stories coming up. Don't go away.
From here to beyond the South, from here to the Caribbean or further north, where can I see news connecting the whole South? From Washington, from Mexico, from Caracas, from Quito, from Havana. You can always see the news from a new vision, connecting the global South. Only on Telesur.
Welcome back. In Ecuador, workers at Radio Pichincha are still waiting on a decision by a provincial court on whether they will be taken off the air. The government of Lenín Moreno argued that the radio station had promoted instability by reporting on the massive anti-government protest in October. Social organizations say this is an attack on freedom of speech.
The new attempt to silence Radio Pichincha in Ecuador is still without a final ruling by the courts. The decision by the Communication Regulatory Agency to appeal the protection order by the radio keeps its workers worried about their jobs.
We are waiting to see what will happen, if we will have to close our station, depending on the decision by the judges. It is also a decision affecting 46 people that were on Radio Pichincha.
Due to this new attack against the radio, there has been a strong criticism against the government, and even international organizations have condemned it.
We have the support of citizens, international organizations, digital media, and even the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights. We receive support every day.
Several human rights defenders and organizations are warning that the acts by the government are a clear violation of rights and attempts to attack freedom of expression.
Last year, the government signed the Chapultepec Declaration, and by it, it said it won't act against freedom of expression. And we are now seeing how the government is violating that right. What they say does not match what they do.
Weeks ago, the Communication Regulatory Agency announced the end of the radio's permit to broadcast and ordered an intervention on it. The agency claimed the radio had committed a crime against national security. In 2019, the agency made 3 attempts to close Radio Pichincha, to which a judge issued a protection order against the radio.
Guinea-Bissau's National Electoral Commission has confirmed Umaro Sissoko Embalo as winner of the presidential election after an audit of the second round of voting. The Economic Community of West African States requested a review of the outcome of the second round on December 29th, as it had been disputed between opposition lawmaker Embalo and Domingo Simoes Pereira, the candidate of the previous ruling party. More than 7,000 workers at the University of South Africa are on strike following a deadlock in negotiations between the university and the workers' union. They are demanding for an 8% wage increase. The university has, however, said that it can only offer a 6% increase. The workers say they will continue with their strike until their demands are met. Japanese authorities have reported that 10 people on a cruise liner in the port of Yokohama have tested positive for coronavirus. The 10 were transported off the ship by the Japan Coast Guard and are now being treated in hospitals as authorities monitor the thousands that are still on board. Japanese Health Minister Katsunobu Kato said the remaining around 3,700 passengers will remain quarantined on board the ship for 14 days. The health checks began on February 3rd after an 80-year-old man from Hong Kong who sailed on the vessel last month tested positive for the Wuhan coronavirus. And China has urged international health agencies and authorities to implement the stricter measures to contain the coronavirus. President Xi Jinping called for more effective screening methods, stricter quarantine rules, and better patient care. This as the city of Wuhan, the epicenter of the outbreak, remains in a lockdown, and the construction of the second emergency hospital is soon to be finished. According to Chinese health authorities, the novel coronavirus has so far killed 491 people and sickened more than 24,363 others in mainland China, making the mortality rate from the virus 2.07% nationally. Our correspondent Iramsi Perez has the latest update on the novel coronavirus outbreak.
China has asked the international community to remain calm as the country continues with its effort to contain the outbreak of the 2019 nCoV coronavirus that has so far killed at least 492 people and sicked over 23 million others, mostly in mainland China. President Xi Jinping has vowed to implement even stricter measures to halt the spreading of the virus, both nationally and internationally. Meanwhile, Chinese Foreign Minister spokesperson Wang Junjing said has made some progress in containing the outbreak. There are signs that the rate of fatalities is slowing, especially in the Hubei province, which is the epicenter of the virus. The first of the two new hospitals built to tackle the outbreak began receiving patients yesterday. It was built just in 10 days and can receive 1,000 patients, with about 1,400 armed medics treating them. The second emergency hospital, with a capacity for 1,600 patients, is still being built, but authorities said it will be ready for Thursday. In the meantime, authorities are converting an additional 8 buildings, including gymnasiums, exhibition centers, and export centers, into hospitals. That's on top of 3 conversions already announced. Together, the process will add an extra of 10 million beds. The Chinese government heavily rejects the growing of xenophobia against Chinese nationals in the wake of the outbreak and call on the international community to stop discriminating Chinese nationals in their respective country and on social media platforms.
That was Ramzi Peraza from China. In the last few years, the United States government has tightened its blockade against Cuba. Yet production has continued at joint venture companies for foreign capital. Our correspondent went to one of the island's main distilleries to see how.
This is Cuba's house of aged rum at the San Jose distillery. The land here and the climate are perfect for producing rum. The San Jose distillery was built to the highest environmental standards. This 150-year-old tree is witness to that. The plants were altered to avoid cutting it down.
Below the ground here we have an important water source, which plays an important part in the blending of the rum. So we have to respect very strict environmental standards in order to take care of both what is below ground and above it.
Here the rum is distilled from cane molasses in a continuous 24-hour process, and it is aged in these barrels of white oak. The technology is modern, but the master distillers use this traditional technique to test the quality.
This is a test using the sense of touch in our hands and the aroma to check the quality of the rum as it ages. We use it at the end of the process of producing Havana Club rum, and it is the same technique our ancestors used.
Rum is a part of the Cuban identity, linked to legends and oral traditions, and essential to carnival celebrations and other community and family rituals. That is why in 2016, Cuba declared the knowledge of its master distillers a part of the national heritage.
The aging is a continuous process that produces changes naturally and creates the particular characteristics of a rum. Very delicate, soft, but strong. This very well-balanced aging that makes for a really pleasing, mature rum. In fact, we often say that the rum is like the Cuban people. It even has the same joy and happiness.
In spite of the tightening of the United States blockade against Cuba, in 2019 the San Jose distillery produced 4.7 million 9-liter cases of rum, a result seen as very satisfactory.
We occupy the 23rd position in an international ranking of all spirits. This is particularly remarkable, given that we are excluded from the North American market, which accounts for about 40% of what will be our natural market. And so given that we are denied that 40%, these results are especially pleasing.
Experts say that the San Jose distillery is a perfect combination of technology and tradition. This master distiller and chemical engineer has been ensuring that quality for 31 years. He says they do not regulate the temperature or humidity, and there is zero use of artificial substances. For him, the secret of the quality is simple. It is that the distillery is in Cuba.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov begins a mini tour of Latin America on Wednesday that will take him to Cuba, Mexico and Venezuela. He will make his first stop in Santiago de Cuba to meet with Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez, the two of whom have met numerous times recently and share a close diplomatic relationship. From there, Lavrov will meet Foreign Minister Marcelo Ebrard in Mexico City to discuss economic ties and cooperation with CELAC. On Friday, he will be meeting with President Nicolás Maduro, Vice President Delcy Rodriguez, as well as with Foreign Minister Jorge Arriaza in Caracas, to discuss deepening cooperation in energy, mining, transport, agriculture, and defense. Tens of thousands of people across Pakistan are observing Kashmir Solidarity Day on Wednesday in support of Kashmiri people's struggle for their right to self-determination. Mass rallies, peace walks, conventions, and meetings are being held across the country to draw world attention towards their plight. This is the first time the day is being observed after India unilaterally revoked the special status of the occupied Kashmir in August last year.
We want to tell the world that Kashmiris are not alone. Today, all of us and Kashmiris living throughout the world are showing solidarity with them.
Argentine President Alberto Fernández has arrived to Paris, where he will meet with French President Emmanuel Macron as part of his last stop in this European tour. Fernández previously traveled to Italy, Germany, and Spain to gather international support in the negotiations with the IMF. Argentina's former president left the country in debt with the International Monetary Fund for $46 billion. Fernández is also expected to meet business leaders for a lithium project in Argentina and return to his country on Friday. The people of Ireland will vote in a general election this Saturday, and for the first time ever, the nationalist party Sinn Féin is ahead in the polls. Under the party's new leader, Mary Lou McDonald, Sinn Féin has just overtaken the Republic's two traditional parties. In the latest Irish Times survey, Sinn Féin has climbed to 25%, ahead of Fianna Fáil with 23%, and the current governing party, Fine Gael, which has fallen to 20%. Sinn Féin is campaigning on more public spending and taxes on the rich to tackle the housing crisis and inequality, as well as its traditional demand for a united Ireland.
I think the penny has perhaps dropped that after almost a century that there is life and politics and government beyond Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil. People are openly telling me that they want us in government. It's not just that they want us to have a good electoral day out. I think people have hugely moved on. We now have, as Irish Republicans and our generation of Republicans, we have a peaceful and democratic way to deliver Irish unity. I think Brexit changed things massively, as you know. And I think the conversation now about constitutional change, reunification, has broadened to the extent that it's not simply a Sinn Féin matter. This is now really a national question and a matter of national interest.
Tuesday marked 107 years since the birth of United States civil rights pioneer Rosa Parks. Parks was a seamstress best known for refusing to give up her seat to a white passenger on a segregated Alabama bus, which led to her arrest in 1955. Those events sparked the Montgomery bus boycott that lasted over a year. It ended when the Supreme Court struck down segregation laws on public transport. And with that historic data, we end our news brief. But you can find all of our stories by checking our website, telesurenglish.net. And be sure to also join us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.